I still remember the silence that followed after I sent my wedding invitation. I'd written that message carefully, formal but warm, asking Mom and Dad if they'd come to my small courthouse ceremony with a few close friends. I even added, "It would mean a lot to me if you were there." 2 minutes later, my phone buzzed. "No, congratulations. No, we're proud of you." Just a forwarded email. My sister Danielle's engagement announcement. The subject line read, "Finally, something worth celebrating." Below it, a link to her registry and a photo of her diamond ring, with Mom and Dad standing behind her, smiling like their lives were complete. That's how they replied to my wedding invitation. I stood there frozen in my kitchen, phone in one hand, my wedding dress folded on the table. My fiancé, Eric, looked up from his laptop. "They said something?" he asked. "Yeah," I whispered. "Just not about me." He frowned. "You can still be happy without them." But that's not how it worked. They'd been ignoring me my entire life. Every achievement, every moment I begged for attention. Danielle was always the perfect one, the golden daughter who deserved everything. She failed college twice, and Mom still said, "She's creative, not lazy." I got my degree with scholarships, and Dad muttered, "You just like showing off." So I didn't expect them to throw a parade for my wedding. I just wanted them to show up. When I called to ask if they were coming, Mom sighed like I'd asked for a loan. "Sweetheart, Danielle's engagement party is the same weekend. You understand, right? It's her big moment. You wouldn't want to take that from her." I bit the inside of my cheek. "You're saying you're not coming to your own daughter's wedding?" "Don't make it sound dramatic," she snapped. "You're doing it at a courthouse. You'll survive without a crowd." Dad took the phone next. "Honey, you always do things differently. You're independent. You don't need us hovering." No anger, just indifference, and that hurt worse. On my wedding day, I looked at the empty seats where they should have been and tried not to cry. Eric squeezed my hand as we said our vows, and for a moment I believed him when he whispered, "You're not alone anymore." But that night, when I checked social media, I saw Mom's post, celebrating our beautiful daughter Danielle's engagement. Couldn't be prouder. I laughed, even as tears blurred the screen. They hadn't even remembered my day. The years after that were quiet. I stopped calling, stopped trying. I built a life with Eric, worked 2 jobs, and eventually started my own company. I didn't tell them about the late nights, the failed pitches, or the day I finally signed my first $1 million contract. They didn't deserve to know. Then, out of nowhere, 4 years later, my phone lit up. "Dad, we heard about your success. Come visit this weekend. We miss you. Danielle will be there too." Miss me? They'd deleted me, but now that my name appeared in a business magazine, they suddenly remembered I existed. Eric looked at the text and raised an eyebrow. "You're not really going, are you?" "I am," I said, "but not for them." When I pulled into their driveway, I wasn't driving the old beat-up car Dad once called a moving embarrassment. I arrived in a silver BMW M8. Smooth, polished, powerful. It wasn't about the money. It was about showing them I didn't need their approval anymore. The front door swung open like they'd been waiting behind it. Mom's mouth fell open. Is that yours?" "Sure is," I said, stepping out. Dad laughed nervously. "You've done well for yourself, huh? We're proud of you, sweetheart. We always knew you'd succeed." Lies rolled off their tongues like they were reading from a script. Danielle came downstairs in a silk robe, clutching her phone. "Wow, look who finally decided to show up. You actually look decent." I smiled faintly. "Thanks. You look exactly the same." They all laughed awkwardly and led me inside like nothing had ever happened, as if they hadn't ignored the most important day of my life. Mom brought out tea, her tone honeyed. "Danielle's wedding is coming up soon, and we could really use some help. You've made a fortune, and family supports each other, right?" There it was. The real reason I'd been invited. Dad chimed in. "You're the responsible one. You could help fund the reception just a little. It would mean a lot." I looked at them one by one. "When I asked you to come to my wedding, you said you were too busy with hers. But now you want me to pay for hers?" Mom blinked, caught off guard. Oh, don't twist it, sweetheart. You know we love you both equally. It's just, Danielle's wedding is a bigger event. I set the cup down. No, it's just the only one you care about. The room went quiet. Danielle crossed her arms, smirking. You always play the victim, Nora. Maybe if you weren't so cold all the time, people would like you. That did it. I stood up, smoothed my jacket, and looked my mother dead in the eye. I used to think I was invisible. Now I realize I was just surrounded by people too shallow to see anything that didn't sparkle. And I walked out. That night, my phone lit up again. Calls, texts, guilt messages. I didn't answer any of them. I was done trying to be seen. But deep down, I knew I wasn't finished. Not yet. Because sometimes silence isn't enough. Sometimes the only way to make people like them notice what they lost is to let them choke on the emptiness they created. And that was exactly what I planned to do. When I got home that night, I couldn't sleep. The words, maybe if you weren't so cold all the time, people would like you, replayed over and over in my head until they stopped sounding like Danielle and started sounding like Mom. That house, with its perfect furniture and fake warmth, had drained something out of me. But what made me angrier was how natural it felt to be treated that way. Like being dismissed had become part of my breathing. I sat on the couch, lights off, laptop open, staring at the glow of my company's logo on the screen. It hit me how long I'd been running, not just from them, but from the part of myself that still craved their approval. The next morning, Mom called again. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something in me wanted to hear her voice, maybe to confirm that nothing had changed. Sweetheart, she began, cheerful as always. Your father and I were thinking, maybe you could lend Danielle something for her wedding. She's overwhelmed. You wouldn't want your sister to look bad, right? There it was. No apology, no reflection, just entitlement dressed up as concern. Lend her? I asked. How much? Well, she found this beautiful venue in Napa Valley. The deposit's only $25,000. It would be so meaningful if it came from you. Meaningful for who? I asked. For all of us, she said, her tone hardening. You're successful now. Don't turn into one of those people who forget where they came from. I laughed, an actual laugh that startled even me. You're right, Mom. I don't forget where I came from. I just learned to stop living there. Her voice cracked. Don't you dare talk to me like that. We raised you. No, I said softly. You raised Danielle. I raised myself. I hung up. For days, the calls didn't stop. Dad sent long texts about family unity. Danielle sent voice notes about how I was jealous. I didn't respond to any of them. But that silence didn't feel like peace yet. It felt like standing in the middle of a storm, waiting for thunder that never came. One night, I opened my social media and saw Danielle's latest post. Some people have money but no class. That's why family matters more than success. My name wasn't mentioned, but everyone knew. I read the comments, friends, cousins, all siding with her. Your sister's always been strange. She never fit in. You're the real daughter. And that's when I realized they didn't just ignore me, they'd rewritten me. Every memory I had of being their daughter was being edited out of existence, and I'd let them. That night, I drove. No destination, just the open road and the hum of the engine. I stopped at the overlook where Eric had proposed to me years ago, a quiet hill above the city lights. I sat on the hood of the car, wind cutting across my face, and whispered, "You're done chasing ghosts, Nora." The next day, I called my assistant, Julia. "We're changing the foundation's name," I told her. "To what?" she asked. "To something that doesn't include the people who never showed up." Because I'd spent years funding a family education trust in my parents' name, a tribute to the parents who abandoned me but inspired me to help others. That irony made me sick now. I wanted every plaque, every sponsorship, every public mention with their names gone. Julia hesitated. "That's going to make headlines." "Good," I said. "Let it." They wanted to be seen. Now they'll have to explain why their daughter erased them. I didn't do it out of anger. I did it because I finally understood. Some people don't deserve to be part of your success story. 2 weeks later, the announcement went public. Nora Hart rebrands foundation, cutting ties with estranged family. That was the day everything shifted. Mom left me a voicemail crying. Dad texted, "You've humiliated us." Danielle posted a vague quote about betrayal and sisters, but I didn't feel guilt anymore, just relief. For the first time, I wasn't the forgotten daughter trying to be seen. I was the woman who'd finally taken the spotlight and walked off stage on her own terms. And they could scream into the dark all they wanted. I wasn't turning back. A few months passed. The silence between us became permanent, heavy but peaceful. I thought I'd finally escaped their shadow until one evening my phone buzzed again. It was Danielle. The message was short. "You won. Hope you're happy." He left me. I didn't reply. But the next day, curiosity got the better of me. I searched her name, and there it was. Her fiancé had backed out just weeks before the wedding, citing irreconcilable family drama. Their deposits were gone, and the vendors were suing for breach of contract. I wasn't surprised. People like them built everything on image, and when the image cracked, there was nothing underneath. A week later, I stopped by my parents' house. Not to reconcile, just to see. The front lawn was unkempt, the car gone, paint peeling off the porch. Through the window, I saw Mom sitting at the table, bills scattered in front of her. Dad wasn't there. For a second, pity flickered, then vanished. Because this wasn't punishment. It was consequence. I walked back to my car, my BMW gleaming under the sunlight, and as I gripped the wheel, I realized something. I didn't need to make them pay. Life already had. They'd traded their daughter for their pride, and now they had neither. When I pulled into my own driveway, Eric was outside with our daughter, laughing as they washed the car together. The moment I stepped out, she ran toward me, giggling, soap bubbles in her hair. Eric smiled. "Long day?" I shook my head. "No, the best one." I lifted my daughter into my arms and whispered, "You'll never have to earn love in this house." Because that was my real revenge, building a life so full of peace that the people who broke me could never belong to it. Again. And as I closed the door behind us, I finally stopped looking back.